Hi guys, good afternoon. I hope I'm audible and visible to everyone. Can you tell that to me in the chat, please? Thank you. Um, all right. Hi Siddharth. So we'll start with the session today. We have a good many participants now. So I'm Raghav. I'm the editor for Lawyers Club India, proud partner with Lawyer. And today on Mentor Hours, we have Mr. Siddharth Chadda, will be addressing on the topic of legal and financial aspects of starting, operating, and growing a business. So the topic is very important because I'd love to know from the participants how many of us have made plans with their best friends of starting a business and then making money and everything, but it almost all the time crashes and we do not know what we are going to see through. So today, Siddharth, who has 4 years of experience with the Big Fours, and he's also managing and leading the global business division and the startup division at SCC. He'll be telling us how should one go about his or her business in terms of starting it, in terms of incorporating it, then growing it and operating it smoothly. So over to you, Siddharth. And I would love to know from the participants how many of you have made plans with your best friends on starting a business and what kind of business is that, so that we can make this interactive and we can ask from Siddharth how should we go about it. Thank you. Over to you, Siddharth.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Raghav has already told something about myself. Uh, just to summarize that, I was working with Ernst& Young in the assurance service sector, and currently I've started my own practice. I'm serving global clients as well as Indian clients, and we're mostly catering the startups. In today's topic, as I'll be sharing the screen, just one second. So the topic for today's seminar, as we told, is financial and legal aspects of starting, operating, and growing a business. In today's webinar, I will not be giving any theoretical knowledge about the topic, about finance, about taxes, about ROC compliance, no theoretical knowledge about that. I'll be answering simple fundamental questions, questions that every entrepreneur who plans to start a new business or an entrepreneur who's already started a business asks himself and is probably never able to find that answer even online. Simple questions like, अगर मेरे को business start करना है, तो what exactly should be the status? Company क्या होती है? LLP क्या होती है? What exactly is the status that I have to start? And for those who've already started a business, they think कि compliance क्या करनी है? Now, an entrepreneur, probably an engineer or anyone else who has a sound knowledge of everything about his business, he knows everything about where to procure the things from, where to sell it, he has the customer base, everything is sorted, but he simply does not know what would be the finance cost, right? If at all he started a company, there is a major cost, right? The compliance cost, which he has to analyze, but he's not able to get that cost. So I'll be answering such questions. So the topic for today's seminar, I've distributed the topic into three segments. Firstly is identifying the ideal business legal status, right? Whether it should be a company or it should be something else. Then it's understanding the legal compliance after starting a business. And then being legally compliant in the most affordable and remunerative manner, right? So to start with this, there are basically these fundamental kind of entities that everybody registers. There is proprietorship, there is partnership firm, there is LLP, private limited company, one-person company. For those who have social objectives, right, religion or charity or something else, they go forward with societies, trusts, Section 8 companies, right? So there are different pros and cons of all these entities, and I'll be tackling them individually. So to start with proprietorship, proprietorship is the most traditional form of business entity that everybody registered earlier, right? Every shopkeeper that you say, or even big traders that have malls are running on the sole proprietorship model. It is nothing else but an individual entrepreneurship where 100% of the ownership is with the proprietor. Now, how to get the legal status of a proprietorship? For example, I've started a business all by myself and I have a store running outside. And how do I get that legal status that I am a business? So there are multiple registrations which are being offered, but the three major kind of registrations that are used by everyone are firstly is GST, of course. Then we have MSME registration, and then we have the Shops and Establishments Act registration, right? So what advantage would I get on getting these registrations? So let me tell you with an MSME registration, there is one drawback that in case you just have an MSME registration, you probably would not be able to open a bank account. You need to have some other registration as well. So for example, I'm Siddharth Chadha. For example, I have a proprietorship firm by the name of Siddharth Chadha and Company, right? So if I have registered myself under MSME, I probably would not be able to open a bank account by the name of Siddharth Chadha and Company. So I either have to take a GST registration for the same, or I need to get myself registered under Shops and Establishments Act, right? So this is the basic fundamentals of proprietorship. It is a sole tradership. Everything is my own. There is unlimited liability. Everything of the business is mine, and my everything is of the business, right? We both are a single entity. We're not separate entities. With taking MSME registrations, I get a lot of benefits. You keep on hearing the finance minister giving multiple loans for the MSME sector. You need an MSME registration for the same. MSME is a free of cost registration. There is no charges for that, right? So this is something about proprietorship. Now I'll take you to the next concept, which is a partnership firm. Now a partnership firm was initially the most, it's a conventional method of having joint business. Me and my friend probably decided to have a business together. So we used to enter into a partnership, right? So there used to be the Partnership Act, which used to govern its laws, right? Now this concept has been, this has become a lost concept now, because now everybody is going with the LLP concept, which is a limited liability partnership. It is a more urban concept, right? But still, there is one benefit of having a partnership firm, that you get the benefits of presumptive taxation. Now, I'll be covering taxation in the later segment of this webinar, and you'll understand what presumptive taxation is, right? So an LLP does not get those benefits, but a partnership firm does. Now, taking you to the two concepts which are like the hotcake for the startups, right? First of all is your LLP, right? So LLP is something where you get the benefits of a partnership firm as well as a private limited company. Now, the benefits of having a LLP are multiple. First of all, it is very easy to get an LLP registered. It hardly takes 15 to 21 days. The cost of registration is very low. You can get your LLP registered in like 8,000, 8,500, right? There is audit exempt for a turnover of up to 40 lakh rupees. So for example, I've started my LLP and my turnover, let's say, is 35 lakh rupees. I am not mandated to have the audit done. Now, audit is a very huge finance cost. You have to get your books of accounts audited by a CA in practice. So for an LLP, audit is exempt till a turnover of 40 lakhs. Or if your share capital is less than 25 lakhs, whichever is lower. The moment you cross either of the limits, you are under the audit liability, right? Then you can start an LLP with just two partners who will be the directors as well, right? So there are some huge business, even Deloitte Financial Advisory Services is an LLP, and you get the privilege of having the LLP name attached, right, to your name. So it's like Siddharth Chadha and Company LLP. So you get that benefit. It gives a lot of professional touch, but the only disadvantage is that you cannot avail 44AD and 44ADA both in LLP as well as private limited company. These are the presumptive taxation sections, which I'll be covering on later on, right? So I'll be taking you to the private limited company now. Now, private limited company is almost the most commonly used business entity for all the startups, for very simple reasons. You can raise equity, you can raise funding, you have multiple options to raise your funding, right? And you can have up to 200 shareholders in a private limited company. Cost of registration again is very low. You can get your company registered in 10,500, right? For a share capital of up to 1 lakh rupees. So, and there are multiple tax benefits also that are associated with a private limited company. Although you have to make a lot of attempts to get those benefits, also the tax rate for a private limited company is lower than the tax rate which is offered for a partnership firm or an LLP. You can be taxed at 25%. I'll be covering the rates of taxation again in the tax segment, right? Then the best part of having a private limited company is that you get the name private limited attached to the name of your company, which is a very big advantage. It gives a lot of professional touch, and the bankers take you seriously. They are ready to fund a private limited company. They probably won't be interested in funding proprietorship because the compliance is low. Their chances of losing the money is higher, right? So this is about a private limited company. The only drawback about a private limited company is that the audit is mandatory. Even if you do not do a single rupee turnover, it is mandatory to get your private limited company audited by a chartered accountant in practice, right? So what all audit is, what are books of accounts, everything is being covered later in the segment. Right now, we can just focus on the words audit, right? The legal compliance is almost equivalent to a LLP. I would say just a little higher than that. But if you consider it in cost terms, then the cost of running an LLP is equivalent to the cost of running a private limited company, right? So there are multiple legal compliances. Now let's, we have registered a business. and you probably have decided to go for an LLP or any other concept that you found feasible. Now your business is into action and there are legal compliances that begin. Now legal compliances could be monthly, quarterly, annually, one time. There are multiple legal compliances. There are relevant registrations. There is tax compliance. There's accounting compliance. There's auditing compliance. It sounds technical. It actually isn't. And by the end of the segment, you probably would be having much grip on the topic. Now, if I tell you about the legal compliances which are relevant, so there are, I'll be covering only 4 compliance as of now: the accounting, income tax, GST, and auditing. Then there is your secretarial compliance, which I'll cover that later, right? So first of all, I'll start with accounting. Now, what accounting is, for those who are from commerce background, they understand what accounting is, but for the engineers and the other non-science, non-commerce backgrounds, this is a little pinch point. As per law, every entity whose income exceeds 1,20,000 has to maintain proper books of accounts. Now, 1,20,000 profit is nothing. Everybody is able to achieve that profit. And then there are certain listed segments under Rule 6F that have to mandatorily prepare the books of accounts irrelevant of what their turnover or their income is, right? So what accounting is, it is simply recording all the transactions that you've entered into. Now, a simple question is, as a new business or as a new entrepreneur, do you really need a full-time accountant? You probably, if at all, you're not sure of, how accounting works. Do you really need a full-time accountant to manage your accounts? Well, the clear answer for this is no. I myself have multiple clients, who have turnover like 1 CR, 2 CR, up to 5 CR, who actually do not have a full-time accountant. All they have to do is they just have to record the transactions. पैसा कहां से आया, पैसा कहां पे गया, किसने हमारे को इनवॉइस रेज किया, हमने किसको इनवॉइस रेज किया. I'll even share a template at the end of the presentation and I'll tell you what exactly am I talking about as to how to record your transactions. But this is nothing else. A simple Excel file would suffice. You just need to hire a consultant. Let us assume for the next 30 minutes that you are a businessman and I'm your consultant, right? So you just have to prepare an Excel file. You have to record all the transactions and you just have to send me that. There is nothing more than that, right? So you don't have to be worried about how to maintain the books of accounts. They have given some technical terms that you have to maintain a cash book, you have to maintain a journal, you have to, keep duplicate bills and everything. That is simply the legal way of saying it. But in fact, there is nothing much technical in this. You just have to keep a copy of your bills and you have to record all the transactions in a simple Excel file. That's it. So I'll be taking you to the next segment, which is GST. Now, GST is something which is both mathematical and legal. You need to be sound with numbers as well as you have to be sound with, your legal part. GST is a very wide topic. It is one of the toughest indirect taxes worldwide, but the basic crux is very simple. There are multiple cases that they've considered in GST. As a new business entrepreneur, you really do not have to worry about that. You just have to understand the simple mathematics that runs behind GST. What exactly is GST, right? So I'm taking a real life example. There is a LLP by the name of ABC LLP. Now that is a steel sanitary ware trader, right? They have a turnover of 50 lakh rupees because there is a certain threshold. Only beyond that you have to register for GST. Now they have given me, for example, these 4 transactions. For example, you are the steel trader. You have entered into the following 4 transactions in the current month. You've purchased sanitary ware for 1 lakh rupees. Now the rate for this sanitary ware is, for example, 28%, right? So you will be paying 1 lakh rupees as the amount for the sanitary ware item that you purchased. Over above that 1 lakh, you will be paying 28% or 28,000 as GST, right? Then, for example, in the same month, you made me a payment of 10,000 rupees for the CA services that I have rendered. My service falls under 18%. So you've given me 10,000 as the value of service and you've paid me 1,800 as GST. Now, in the month, you sold 800 units of the 1,000 units that you purchased earlier. You sold 400 units for 60,000, another 400 for 64,000, and you've collected GST at 28% on that amount. Now, GST account is nothing else but a loan account. आपने जब कुछ चीज परचेज की, इट इज नथिंग एल्स बट आप अपने लोन अकाउंट में पैसा डाल रहे हैं, और जब आपने कुछ सामान बेचा तो आपने अपने लोन अकाउंट से उतना पैसा निकाल दिया. आप जब जीएसटी कलेक्ट करते हैं अपनी सेल पे, यू आर कलेक्टिंग जीएसटी ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. व्हेन यू आर पेइंग जीएसटी ऑन द परचेजेस, आप गवर्नमेंट को एडवांस में जीएसटी पे कर रहे हैं. तो अगर आप उसको एक सिंपल प्लस माइनस की इक्वेशन में देखेंगे तो जब when you purchased the sanitary ware, you purchased and you paid 28,000, then you paid me CA services 10,000 rupees, you again paid 1,800. In the month, you have paid 29,800 rupees as GST. Then you made certain sales and you collected 16,000 and 17,000 respectively as the GST from your customers. So you have collected 34,000 rupees on the behalf of government. तो आपने 34,000 कलेक्ट किया और आपने 29,000 पे किया, तो जो डेफिसिट 4,920 रुपीस का है वो आप पे कर देंगे. बस इतना सा सिंपल कंसेप्ट है जीएसटी का. देयर इज नथिंग मोर देन दैट एज फार एज द क्रक्स ऑफ द टैक्स इज कंसर्न्ड. नाउ देयर आर मल्टीपल प्रोविजंस, हंड्रेड्स ऑफ फॉर्म्स. Leave all those things to your consultant. Focus on the business, right? And once you have the crux and you're from the legal background, you probably would be able to get a better hold of these numbers. If you're from the law background and you're looking forward to build a career in commercial taxes, then you can definitely use this fundamental knowledge to understand what actually the tax is. So there are basically two major returns which are relevant for everyone. One is GSTR1, in which you report the sales, and then there is GSTR3B, in which you report the purchases and you pay the balance taxes, right? Due dates are 11th and 20th. So the two sales that you made, you have to report those two sales by 11th, and then the purchases that you made, you have to report by the 20th, and the balance 4920 also you have to pay by the 20th of the next month. Now you have an option to avail quarterly return if your turnover is less than 1.5 crores. In this, the GSTR1 becomes quarterly and you can file, it's like April, May, June's return will be filed in July. So that is one option which you can avail for the simplification. Now the threshold limit for registration under GST is that for the traders, the limit is 40 lakh rupees. Agar mera turnover 40 lakh se kam hai, then I am not mandated to have a registration under GST. For the service providers like chartered accountants, lawyers, architects, it is mandatory to have a registration beyond 20 lakh rupees. So service providers ke liye 20 lakhs, traders के लिए other than service providers के लिए I would say 40 lakhs. तो अगर आप इस टर्नओवर के नीचे हैं तो आपको जीएसटी लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. But a recommendatory measure is that if you're looking for a long run business and you're optimistic about your business approach, definitely go for GST, because there are so many inputs that you'll be missing on. Then the government generally does not entertain the clients, right? If you're submitting a government tender, generally the government does not entertain the tender filers who do not have a GST. So recommendatory measure is that you should take a GST. Now I'll be going to the next step, which is the income tax compliance. Now income tax compliance can majorly be distributed under two segments. One is your TDS and the other is your income tax return filing. For those small entrepreneurs who have not reached, a certain threshold, they do not have to worry about TDS much, because most of the TDS sections, I would say rather all of the TDS, just apart from 4-5 sections, all of those sections are applicable only on those entrepreneurs, only on those business persons who have a turnover of over 1 CR. I would say that is the basic limit for tax audit. Most of the sections are applicable for that. But let us imagine that your turnover is beyond the limit specified under 44AB, which is the threshold section for income tax, and you have the TDS compliance mandatory. So how does TDS work? Imagine yourself as the steel trader again, right? Your turnover, for example, is 2 crore rupees. You pay me an audit fees every year of 50,000 rupees. So how TDS section works is that there is a relevant section. These are the multiple sections. There is a single section for every kind of payment. So I would take 194J in this example. 194J section is applicable on professional services and technical services. So I am a CA, I provide professional services to you. You're paying me 50,000. So the limit is 30,000 for 194J. You're paying me more than 30,000. So you fall under 194J, right? You're making me a payment of 50,000. So what you'll actually do is that you will make me a payment of 50,000 minus 10%. This is the rate for 194J. You will pay me only 45,000. 5,000 you will deposit to the government on my behalf. That 5,000 I can claim as a refund at the end of the year, or I can adjust it with my income tax liability as the case may be. That is the simple concept behind TDS. There is nothing technical. As a business entrepreneur, you'll probably be dealing with 2 or 3 sections. You'll either be paying rent, or you'll be paying some contractor, or you'll be paying your CA. There is not much. You just have to deduct the TDS and pay the amount by the 7th of the next month. That is the entire compliance that is expected out of you, even if you've crossed the 1 crore turnover. So you actually do not need a full-time accountant to manage all these things. This is very simple. Once you start the business and you're considering your personal case, you can have a private session and you can understand what exactly are the sections that are applicable to you, and you just have to focus on those sections. That is it. Now we'll take you to the next concept, which is income tax return filing. You would all have heard of ITR. ITR is a very important document. You need it for your visas, you need it for your loans, you need it for your business legitimate, everything that you want to do, you at least need an income tax return. That is a very important document, like your Aadhaar card in current scenario, right? These are the original due dates. Definitely for current year, due to coronavirus, these due dates have changed. But the original due dates for income tax returns are that for individuals, the proprietors that we told you about, they are under, they have to get their books audited by 30, they have to submit their ITR by 31st July. Those who are audited under 44AB, I'll be covering section 44AB audit at the end. Those who are in that audit purview, they have to file their return by 30th September. Fortunately for the current year, the due date has been extended up to 30th November 2020. Right. So income tax return is nothing. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, Siddharth, you're audible. I'll request everyone to please mute themselves so that the speaker is not disturbed while speaking. Siddharth, please continue. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll be telling you a little about income tax rates. Then you'll probably be able to understand income tax return better, right? For individuals, when I was talking about proprietors, they are the individuals, and we have slab rate taxation system for them. So how does that work? Imagine myself as a proprietor. I have, for example, earned a profit of 7 lakh rupees this year. Now there is a slab rate taxation which works. For the first 2,50,000, I have to pay 0% taxes. For the next 2,50,000, I have to pay 5% taxes. For the next 5 lakh rupees, you can see the limits. It's 2,50,000, then 250 to 5 lakhs, then 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, then above 10 lakhs. Then I'm telling you about 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, I have to pay 20% tax, and above 10 lakhs, we have to pay 30% tax. This year, FM has already announced a separate taxation scheme where you have an interval of 2,50,000 and increase of 5%. I will not be covering that. It would extend this a lot. So this is the fundamental, which was the basic slab rate system for individuals, right? So I gave you an example. My income current year, for example, is 7 lakh rupees. So for the first 2,50,000, I'll be paying nothing. Then for the next 2,50,000, I'll be paying 5%. That is 12,500 rupees. And for the balance 2 lakhs, which is 7 lakhs minus 5 lakhs, I'll be paying 20% taxation, right? So 40,000 on the 2 lakhs and 12,500 on the first 2,50,000. So cumulatively, I'll be paying 52,500 plus 4% cess to the government. This is how income tax is calculated for the individuals. You can consider individual taxation to be the most complicated taxation. It is very simple for the firms and the LLPs. I'll tell you, right? So now I'll be coming back to the income tax return filing. During the year, you just have to report these transactions. You have to tell them this was my sale, this was my purchase, this is my profit, these are my tax savings, this is my profit, and I have paid this tax. The reporting of these transactions and the payment of these taxes is nothing else but the income tax return filing simply. So once you're done with the proprietorship taxation, I'll be covering the partnership firm in very briefly. For the domestic companies up to a turnover of 2 crore 20, for domestic companies, the private limited companies that I was telling you about, for up to a turnover of 250 crores, the basic tax rate is 25%. So if I have made a profit of, for example, 50 lakh rupees this year, I simply have to pay 25% tax on that amount because I fall below 250 crores. There is no slab rate, there is nothing, right? I'll leave the tax savings and everything separately because that is very case specific. You may be doing something else, your other colleague would be doing something else. I won't be covering the tax saving in a general seminar, right? And for a LLP and a partnership firm, the tax rate is 30%. Now, even if you're planning to start your business as a firm or a company, the individual tax rates are still relevant for you because you will be probably be drawing salary from the company or the LLP, and then you alone shall be taxed as the proprietor, right? It will be the individual tax rate which you will be paying on that. So that again is very relevant for you. Now, income tax, I think, is sorted pretty much. GST, you've understood what the basic fundamental runs. Now I'll be taking you to the audit part. What exactly is audit? For you, if at all it is an income tax audit or a GST audit or a ROC audit, no matter what kind of audit it is, for you, it is just like submitting all your transactions to a CA in practice, right? That CA in practice will submit all the relevant forms on behalf of you. You actually do not have to worry. But for those who are legal professionals and want to have a better eye of what kind of audits are there, I'll be summarizing that. Firstly, we'll be covering the tax audit. Here we talk about the income tax audit. So income tax audit is conducted under 44AB of the Income Tax Act. It primarily is conducted. So there are 5 cases in which a tax audit is conducted, but the major threshold, which I would say, is that it is conducted when your turnover, the total sales, not your profit, when your turnover exceeds 1 crore rupees. So irrespective of your status, whether you're a proprietor or a firm or a company, if your turnover is above 1 crore rupees, you'll be falling under the income tax audit. Then we have the GST audit. Earlier, the limits for the GST audit were separate. Now they've changed. The limit is 2 crore rupees. So if your turnover is above 2 crore rupees, you are eligible to have an audit under section 35(5) of the CGST Act, which is the GST audit. Right. Currently, the due date has been extended for the previous 2 years. Even for the 17-18 year, we are not done with the audit because the due date is extending continuously. Then lastly, we have the company audit. Company audit, as you can see, I've written company audit. Actually, it is audit of LLPs and companies both. Right. So for companies, there is no threshold. Even if you're a loss-making entity, you do not have a single rupee turnover, you still have to get your company audited. And then secondly, you have LLPs. I've told you earlier as well that for a turnover of up to 40 lakhs, you're not liable to audit, or your share capital is less than 25 lakh rupees, whichever is lower. So these are the basic 3 kinds of audits that I'm talking about right now. Now, for you as an entrepreneur, do you really have to consider what these different audits are? For you, if you're falling in either of the limits, so for example, you're a company, you have to get your audits irrespective of your turnover. So it is leave that to your consultant. If he's filing the income tax audit form, is he filing the GST audit form, or is he filing your ROC audit form, right? Or your AOC 4 that we call. All those forms are, leave those things to the consultant. You do not have to worry that, oh, I have to get a tax audit, then I have to get a GST audit. You just have to submit your books of accounts and your bills, the audit will be done. Right? We'll just be reporting based upon the form. When we are talking of a GST audit, we'll be submitting the GST related transactions. When we're talking about income tax, we're submitting the tax related transactions. This is how it works. Right? So these are the general 5 cases in which you can get which you're mandated to have a tax audit done. So right now I have considered, basically what exactly is the status that you should be choosing for a new business. Then what are the relevant kinds of compliance, and how much does it actually get, cost to get those compliances done. Now, I think I'll be opening the Q&A session because I'm done with my 35 minutes. So, Raghav, can we start?
Yes. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you so much. In fact, I've been blaming myself for not having interest in accounts. Now I know they were my mentors. So it was a beautiful session, really beautiful session. And so we'll move on to the questions now. And yeah, first of all, like 5 or 6 people have asked me a very serious question. When did you find the time to get through across so much information? Because you look very young and people are asking what is his age.
No, so basically, I was fortunate enough and I was lucky enough to clear my attempts pretty soon. I started doing chartered accountancy in the year 2013, and in November 2018, I qualified. So that is like almost, I would not say the minimum, but almost the minimum time that you need to qualify. And I did my internships and articleship, because you guys do internships, we CAs do articleship. So I did that very rigorously, and I was attending office for like 12-13 hours a day. Then I went to EY. It was a different experience altogether. Then so time has beaten us to have this kind of knowledge. So it is very practical knowledge. So that's all.
Amazing.
And my
amazing.
age, I'm 24 years old.
Great. You're giving existential crisis to many. All right. We'll move on to the questions now. So we have we have one from Ritesh first, and he's asking to please summarize the lineal initial registrations and requirements for a newly incorporated private limited company that the private limited company should comply with.
So as far as a private limited company is concerned, when you actually register your company, most of the compliances you're done with there and then. But if you actually want to know the theoretical flow of how this works, right? So once your company is registered and you've given, for example, a temporary registration address, this is a very important compliance which actually many people miss. When I actually do not have a company, how can I have a registered office? I have just given some communication address as a temporary registered office, and I use it as my office address. Now I have to fill a form INC 22, we call it. That is after the registration of the company, and we have to do it within 30 days, where we have to give the verification of the registered office. We have to give an address proof and all those things. Then very important point, you have to open a bank account in the name of the company. You have to start maintaining your books of accounts. If you have a full-time accountant, well and good. If you don't, you have to just start recording the transactions so that some consultant or a CA can, record those transactions on behalf of you. Right. Then as I told you, for a company, audit is mandatory irrespective of the turnover. So you have to appoint the first auditor. You have to think of a chartered accountant who will be your financial auditor, and you have to appoint that auditor. There is a specific ROC form for that. There'll be ADT one that you have to do the filing for. Right. Then there is a registration. You can take a Shops and Establishment Act registration, I would suggest. Right. And then there is for very few states like Bangalore people, Karnataka people, they are liable for professional tax. If you see that, if you are an employee and you're getting your salary from a Bangalore company, you would definitely be seeing that professional tax deduction from your salary. So you have to get yourself registered under that professional tax. Right. Then when you started the company, you promised to contribute the share capital. You have to infuse that share capital. Then there is a name reservation which works, right? For example, I register a company by the name of Siddharth Chadha and Company Private Limited. Now the reservation of this name is exclusive to the name of the company. No other company can be registered by the name of Siddharth Chadha and Company Private Limited. This is not a trademark. Anyone else can also use the name of Siddharth Chadha and Company. I have not got the exclusive title over this name. So there is a trademark provisions which you definitely have to, you can use if you want to register that thing. Now there are multiple trade specific registrations, I would say, right? For example, I'm starting a business of a restaurant, right? I've started a restaurant business. Then what registration would be applicable for me? I'll be taking an FSSAI registration, the FSSAI food licensing. Now that is not a registration that is applicable on everyone. That is applicable on those who are entering the food business, right? So there are multiple trade specific registrations. So as the case may be, you can consult, right? You can have a private email. You can tell me what exactly is your line of business, and I can tell you what all registrations you want, right? And all the certifications. So if you're into the export business, right, you need to mandatorily have your import export code. You need to apply a letter of undertaking with the GST authorities. There are multiple registrations which are trade specific. So there is no general answer as to what all are the registrations post registration of a company. I hope that answers the question well.
All right. I hope, Ritesh, you're satisfied with the answer. We'll move on to the next one. And the next one comes from a law student, and he wants to know what are the prospects for the lawyers in firms. And it has become an unsaid rule to have lawyers in the firm to make sure that everything is complied with. So what do you think for a growing business? Is lawyer a must? What is the value of a lawyer for a company?
Well, to answer that question, I would not just be using the term lawyer. I'll be using the word consultant, a legal consultant. Now, there are so many aspects. As I just, gave you a brief summary of what the basic registrations are. And this in itself is very complicated, right? Income tax is something which, it takes 40 years to get hold of that. You cannot expect an entrepreneur to have a knowledge of GST, income tax, ROC compliance, food licensing, export requirements. You cannot expect a businessman to have all these knowledge, right? So if at all a lawyer who's interested into taxes, who's interested into legal compliance of a corporate, then such kind of a lawyer is of very much relevance to a business. The penalties are huge, simply huge. Every day we are having clients who are coming to our offices. They're saying that हमने registration कराया था 2017 में GST का, but अभी तक हमने business नहीं किया, तो हमने return नहीं file किया. Now they're paying lakh rupees as GST penalty, even for a business that they've not even started. So had they hired a consultant or taken a lawyer's opinion, a legal opinion, then they would have got the knowledge that they have to surrender the GST. So a role of a consultant, so I suggest that you actually do not need a full-time lawyer to, in your office, but the guidance of a professional is very integral for a business. Even if you're starting with a business and your expected turnover is just 5 lakh rupees, you just have to pay 2, 4, 5,000 rupees per month. But the value addition that you get in the business is huge. The role of a lawyer or a legal consultant is very important in a current scenario.
Thank you. Mr. Atul Balmiki, I hope that suffices. And the next question we'll move on to, this is from Kaushik Hiran Bhadra, and he's asking, after auditing and submission of the same, if a flaw therein is discovered by us, what
I
are
missed the question. Can I have the question again, please?
Yes. So the question is from Kaushik Hiran Bhadra, and he's asking, after auditing and submission of the same, if a flaw therein is discovered by us, what remedies do we have?
So there is a separate accounting treatment, which works for prior period items. So there are two kinds of discrepancies. One is the discrepancy which the auditor observes after filing the audit report. For example, I am your auditor. I have done all your audit, पूरा books of verification सब कुछ हो चुका है, and I filed the audit report. अब अगर उसमें कुछ गलती निकल जाती है, then there are separate provisions. एंड अगर आप बिजनेस हैं और आपने कुछ आइडेंटिफाई किया है, तो अगर वो फ्रॉड नहीं है, वो सिर्फ एक प्रायर पीरियड एडजस्टमेंट है, तो उसके सेपरेट अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं व्हिच डील विद प्रायर पीरियड एडजस्टमेंट्स. उसका अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट हो जाता है और नेक्स्ट ईयर जब फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स बनेंगी तो उसमें रिपोर्ट हो जाता है. So that is a separate trail and it works specifically for different kind of scenarios. So I need a better idea of exactly what is the mistake that they've identified, whether it is a fraud or whether there is a misstatement, what exactly is that. So I think it is a little case specific, but this is the general idea behind it.
Okay, Mr. Bhadra, if you can come up with the specific thing that you're asking for, then we can address it better. We'll move on to the
I
next
think we can have it separately on the email as well.
Yes, we can do that. Chandrika, I'd request you to share the email ID of Siddharth with everyone so that they can connect with him. And the next question is from Aryan Verma. And he's asking, for LLP, what is the minimum income tax slab to fall in the 30% tax bracket?
As I told you, LLPs do not fall in the slab rates, right? So LLPs can neither take the benefit of presumptive taxation. So I'll just give you a brief summary, first of all, of what presumptive taxation is. There was Justice Easwaran. It was Justice Easwaran's committee which suggested that there should be a lower tax rate. There should be a simplified taxes, right? So what they say is that, for example, I'm a trader. I deal into hardware, right? And I have a turnover of, let's say, 1 crore rupees. I have the option not to maintain the specific books of accounts and just to take a single specified income profit tax rate, right? So how this works is that there is a section by the name of 44AD, which says that your profit shall be 8% of your turnover or 6% of your turnover. 6% will be only when all your receipts are through banking channels. I have not made a single rupee sale through cash. So when my entire sales are through banking channels, then I have a 6% tax, 6% profit. And when I have some, mixed and match, there is some cash income, there is some bank income, then there is 8% profit. So for example, I have made a sale of 1 crore rupees and everything was through banking channels. Then what is my profit? 6%, which is 6 lakh rupees. Now the taxes will be on that 6 lakh rupees. So agar main partnership firm hu, to 30% taxes hai. 30% taxes will be on that 6 lakh rupees, which comes down to effectively 1.8% of your turnover. तो अगर आपने 1 करोड़ का टर्नओवर किया है और आप प्रिजम्पटिव टैक्सेशन में फॉल करते हैं, तो आपने इफेक्टिवली सिर्फ 1,80,000 रुपए का टैक्स दिया है. Now this option is available only for partnership firms, as I told you earlier. This is available for partnership firms and proprietorships and HUF. LLP के पास प्रिजम्पटिव टैक्सेशन का ना तो कोई ऑप्शन है, ना उनके पास आपका बेसिक स्लैब रेट का बेनिफिट है. स्लैब रेट, as I told you, is applicable for proprietors. तो LLP को तो tax देना ही पड़ता है 30%. So all you can do is manage your expenses, take some tax savings.
All right. Thank you. The next question is from Archana, which is, how is SOC different from auditing?
How is?
SOC different from auditing.
What is the full form SOC? What exactly is SOC?
Archana, we will request Archana to do that for us. So if we can have...
Then can we have the next question?
Yes.
Okay, yes, then so can we have the next question?
Yes,
we'll get back to that question. Yeah.
Okay, Archana says security, operation security.
Security, option security. I'm not sure of this terminology. I haven't used it.
Security operations center. She has just corrected it. Security options center.
Well, I'm not sure of this concept. So sorry.
No worries. Archana, Siddharth, maybe you can help her personally.
I think there is a separate terminology for that, because there are multiple things by the name of SOA and all those things, but I'm not sure of SOC. I'm so sorry.
All right. We'll move ahead with the advocate L.A. Jain wants to ask, should a legal firm be registered at the first place and under what title?
Legal firm. All right. So there is a basic thumb of rule that operates for almost all the professional service providers apart from architects, right? So that is that you cannot operate as a private limited company. So if Siddharth Chadha wants to be appointed as an auditor, right? Either Siddharth Chadha should be a proprietor, right? Or there should be a partnership firm. or an LLP. Siddharth Chadha Private Limited cannot be appointed as an auditor. Same thumb rule applies for the lawyers as well. For a lawyer, most of the biggest law firms that you would see have an LLP status. Now, LLP status is very important. I would not suggest a partnership firm, a simple partnership firm, because of a very simple reason. In current scenario, the liability of professionals is unlimited in a way. If at all, you're attesting or you're giving some legal opinion, you again can face a lot of legal suits. Now, if I talk about a simple partnership firm, not an LLP, a simple partnership firm. I am a partner. I have another partner with me who's a lawyer. He has done some kind of bona fide mistake, not a fraud, a bona fide mistake. Now, a bona fide mistake is also not an excuse, right? You can be sued for doing a mistake. Now, the liability is joint in a partnership firm. We both partners have a joint liability towards the firm. Now, if I talk about an LLP, if that partner has done a bona fide mistake and I am completely, I have not done any mistake, I'm completely clean. In that scenario, my liability is only limited up to the share capital that I have purchased in the LLP. Right? When I subscribed for the LLP, I made some contribution by the name of partner's contribution. That alone is my liability. My personal assets, my house, my car, my land is not, going to be attached with the mistake that my partner has done. So LLP that's why called a limited liability partnership. So the biggest law firms that you would see have a status of LLP. Same goes for CA firms. For architects, there is an exception. Architects have still now, not updated their law, and the LLP architecture firm cannot do the business by the name of their firm. So they still have to run either a simple partnership firm or a proprietorship. So I think that would answer the question. So I would suggest simply LLP is the right option for a legal firm.
All right. Okay, we have another question from Vishal Paul, and he wants to ask which is better, LLP or private limited? You've already touched upon that, but if you
I think I should summarize on that point. I think it could have become a little blank for you. So let me take two simple scenarios, right? And that is, you can call it a mindset also. When I am very optimistic about my business, right? I'm sure this business is going to do wonders. I know that there will, with a private limited company, you have that audit part attached. You have to get that audit done. Now with the cheapest of the audit would also cost somewhere around 15,000, right? Then the registration cost is somewhere also 2,000 rupees expensive than a simple LLP. तो अगर आप सिर्फ एक हिट एंड ट्रायल के लिए बिजनेस स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं, राइट, यू जस्ट थॉट कि एक बार बिजनेस ट्राई करके देखते हैं, then having that additional 15-20,000 rupees added cost every year could be, a pinch point for you. So if you're optimistic about your business approach, then go for a private limited company. If at all you're even a little pessimistic, आपको लगता है कि मैं अभी इस फाइनेंस कॉस्ट में नहीं फंसना चाहता, I'm not sure मैं 40 लाख का टर्नओवर क्रॉस करूंगा, so why do I have the foundation of getting an audit done? तो अभी आप LLP कर लो. In the future, as it is, you have an option to convert LLP to partnership, LLP to private limited. You have that option, right? तो आप अभी के लिए LLP को ऑप्शन ले लो. But there are certain trade requirements also. It's not the basic mindset thumb rule कि मैं optimistic pessimistic approach लेके LLP और private limited company में decide कर लूंगा. That is not how it works, right? So if you have, you're planning to have some venture capitalists, you're planning to raise some equity, in that case you have no other option but to register a private limited company. So depending upon how much you're into the business, what is the level of risk that you're going to take, because winding up of a company is an expensive deal, right? You can register a company for 10,000 but you need at least 50,000 to wind that company up. Right. So अगर आपने एक बार register कर दिया तो आप फंस जाते हो private limited company में. You have to consider these factors. So that's how it works.
Interesting. Thank you. So the next question, Siddharth, is that you told us that there's no need for auditing till 40 lakhs for the LLPs. So what if LLPs do not do the audit after they have crossed 40 lakh, and what is the kind of radar that they should be expecting around them, a legal radar? What is the kind of implications that it has?
So there are multiple parts to that. First of all, when you had to get your audit done and you're not doing it, it is a violation of the Companies Act 2013. Sorry, but in this case it will be the LLP Act. Right, and there is late filing for everything, right? So it starts so I'll take a better example of private limited company because it makes more sense, it is more relatable, right? So in case of a private limited company, when you have to appoint an auditor, you have to file ADT1. अब अगर आपने ADT1 फाइल नहीं किया, you're facing that 100 rupees penalty per day, right? Then आपने जब audit report बना के आपके CA ने उसको फाइल करना था, that CA had to file AOC4. अब अगर आप वो AOC4 नहीं फाइल कर रहे हो, you're facing legal penalty per day on that. तो ये तो एक फाइनेंशियल बर्डन है ही है। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट उसके ऊपर लीगल और ऑफेंसेस भी लगेंगे क्योंकि आपने ऑडिट नहीं कराया, राइट? सो इट इज नॉट दैट सिंपल कि मैं ऑडिट नहीं कराऊंगा तो मैं सिंपली सिर्फ 100 रुपए की पेनल्टी देता रहूंगा, तो उसके आगे बहुत सारी लिस्ट ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शंस हैं और उसके बाद आपका नाम भी स्ट्राइक ऑफ हो जाएगा फ्रॉम द रजिस्टर ऑफ कंपनीज. So these are the provisions that work for the companies. So almost similar provisions work for the LLP as well. तो उसमें दो लिमिट्स हैं, 25 लाख रुपीस शेयर कैपिटल एंड 40 लाख रुपीस टर्नओवर. तो अगर मेरा शेयर कैपिटल मान लो 26 लाख रुपीस हो चुका है, मेरा टर्नओवर 35 लाख ही है, तो भी मैं ऑडिट में मैंडेटेड आ जाता हूं because it's lower of the two. It's either 25 lakh rupees share capital or it's 40 lakh rupees turnover. So उसके legal consequences हैं, and if you want, I have that entire page ready with me of the offenses and the legal consequences. I can share that after this webinar to get a better idea of comparatively LLP and Companies Act what are the repercussions of not getting the audit done, because that is very important for us.
Of course, we'll manage that. You can share it with us, and
I can share that. I have that one page of PDF ready. I'll share that.
All right. So next question is from Bijal Shape, and he wants to ask: can a legal professional and a startup law firm be registered as MSME? And also, there's a related question, which is that how much time does it take to register MSME and different kinds of companies that
MSME registration, if you talk about it simply, when you talk the basic MSME registration, it is your Udyog Aadhaar registration. It is a free of cost registration. If I register today, I'll be getting one form today itself, which is the receipt of the registration, and then I'll be again getting a form in another 2 to 3 days which is the full proof registration certificate as the MSME. This is a very important document because all the MSME loans that we talk about, they ask for this registration. So it is a very it's free of cost. So if you have hired a consultant, that consultant will give you that registration free of cost, of course. And there are tons of benefits that are associated with it. Right. So it is a must do for all the businesses, irrespective whether you're a legal professional or a trader or anything. No matter what you are, if you're getting something free of cost and there are benefits associated to it, you should definitely aware that.
So whether law firms can go for MSMEs, Bijal is asking.
Yeah. You can get your firm registered under MSME.
He's saying
even
that
your proprietorship.
He says that he has read that professionals are not allowed.
No, it's not that. I am a professional. I am registered under MSME. My firm is registered under Udyog Aadhaar.
All right. So we have another question from Advocate L.A. Jen, and he wants to ask, he's saying, usually I see Mas's name, so-and-so, and Advocate and Associates. So do they need to register and maintain accounts? And when they maintain accounts, who do they show it to? And how are they auditable?
Okay, so this is a very nice question, very relevant question. As I told you about Rule 6F in the initial part of my slide, maintaining of books of accounts is mandatory for those who have an income of 1,20,000 or above, or they have a turnover of 10 lakh rupees or above, whichever is lower, whichever falls first. But there are certain professions which are listed under Rule 6F, right? And as professionals, we are mandated to prepare the books of accounts. Now, books of accounts, they're asking that whom do we have to show it, because we're not falling in the we're not falling in the audit turnover limits. So who do we show it to? We file an income tax return every year, right? When we file the income tax, I'll be telling an exception to this as well. We file an income tax return every year. We file the ITR form, we fill in our profit and loss, we fill in our balance sheet, we disclose the profits, and then we get taxed. Now, the income tax department processes that income tax return. If at all they find any discrepancy in the return, or at times it is just hard luck, right? If they find any discrepancy or you're unlucky enough to get your case scrutinized, then you will get a notice from the department. You can get any notice. It could be a 143.1 general, 143.2 a general scrutiny, right? There is 143.2 and 143.3. So those are the sections for the regular scrutiny assessment. Then you can get a notice under 147 if they think that you've done a fraud, right? There are similar kinds of notices that you get from the department. Now, if at all you have, you've got such kind of notice, you have to present your case before the income tax authorities. It is then that you have to show them that these are the books of accounts. अगर मैंने आपको बोला है कि मैंने 10 लाख की सेल करी है, then these are the 10 lakh rupees sale invoices. अगर मैंने आपको कहा है कि मैंने 3 लाख रुपए की सैलरी दी है, तो these are the receiving of my employees who accept that they have accepted a salary of 3 lakh rupees. If I am saying कि मैंने 20,000 रुपए का लैपटॉप पे डेप्रिसिएशन क्लेम किया है, then this is the purchase invoice of my laptop. अगर मैं उस टाइम पर डिपार्टमेंट में असेसिंग ऑफिसर के सामने वो एविडेंसेस नहीं दे पाता, इन दैट केस द डिपार्टमेंट विल टैक्स द एंटायर 10 लाख रुपीस, और एट टाइम्स इवन द बेस्ट जजमेंट व्हिच कुड बी मोर देन दैट, उस पूरे अमाउंट को टैक्स कर देगा एंड वो उसके ऊपर पेनल्टी भी लगाएगा. तो इतना आपने कमाया नहीं जितना आपने उस पर टैक्सेस और पेनल्टी दी. तो एज अ थंब रूल आप एज इट इज, आप अगर जब जुलाई में अपनी रिटर्न फाइल कर रहे हैं तो आपको नहीं देना अपने बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स. Now this question has a very important segment attached to it, which is 44ADA. Earlier I told you about 44AD. Now I'm telling you about 44ADA. 44ADA is a presumptive taxation section which is available for professionals. Professionals like CAs, CS, CMA, technical advisors, interior decorators, lawyers, such kind of professionals have a benefit to take this section. As per this section, not the salaried professionals I'm telling you, the practicing professionals, right? So for example, you're a lawyer. You have receipts of, for example, 15 lakh rupees this year, right? Now they would say कि हम आपसे आपके books of accounts नहीं मांग रहे हैं, हम आपसे आपके खर्चों के बिल नहीं मांग रहे हैं, आप सिंपली इसका 50% प्रॉफिट मान लो. तो अगर मैंने 15 लाख रुपीस की सेल करी है तो वो उसमें 7.5 लाख रुपए को प्रॉफिट मान ली, और जो टैक्सेशन होगा वो उस 7.5 लाख रुपए के ऊपर होगा. तो अगर मैं प्रोपराइटर हूं, राइट, एंड अगर मैं अपनी टैक्स सेविंग्स अच्छे से करके चल रहा हूं, तो आप मान के चलिए बिना बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स मेंटेन करे हुए मैं 15 लाख रुपए की सेल पे 1 रुपया टैक्स नहीं दूंगा, और मैं बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स भी मेंटेन नहीं करूंगा अगर मैं सब कुछ अच्छे से कर रहा हूं और मैं अपनी टैक्स प्लानिंग कर रहा हूं. सो दिस इज हाउ इट वर्क्स. So for the case specific, I can provide a better computation and a statement as to how I am saying कि आपको 1 भी रुपया टैक्स नहीं देना 15 लाख के ऊपर. Some people would say कि नहीं 7.5 लाख रुपए में तो आप स्लैब रेट में आ गए, आपने 12,500 वो वाला देना है और आपने 50,000 वो वाला देना है. नहीं, उसके एक्सेप्शंस हैं, आप उसमें टैक्स बेनिफिट्स ले सकते हो, आप 80C, 80D, 80E, आप 24 में हाउसिंग की डिडक्शन ले सकते हो. देयर आर मल्टीपल डिडक्शंस व्हिच आर अवेलेबल विद, तो आप उसमें से कुछ लेंगे तो वो बेनिफिट मिलेगा. तो बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स मैंडेटरी नहीं है अगर आप 50 लाख तक के टर्नओवर में हैं और आप वो प्रोविजन ले रहे हैं, आप 50% अपना प्रॉफिट डिस्क्लोज कर रहे हैं.
All right. Mr. Jain, I think that wraps around everything pretty much. And now we have Ria Goyal, and she's asking, can a person file TDS online by himself, and what is the best software for error-free TDS?
I think Clear TDS is a very nice option that you can go forward with. Clear TDS free है, and but the thing is कि TDS के साथ बहुत सारी penalties हैं, 1.51% ऐसे per month की penalties भी उसमें associated होती है. TDS में आप चाहे अपने आप फाइल करें, नो प्रॉब्लम, इफ यूर साउंड विद द एक्ट. अगर आपको एक्ट की अच्छी नॉलेज है देन गो फॉर क्लियर TDS. बट अगर आपको एक्ट की अच्छी नॉलेज नहीं है तो इसमें बहुत हेवी पेनल्टीज होती हैं, और इसमें सबसे बुरी बात यह है कि आपके 4-5 साल पुराने केस लगते हैं. यू आर जस्ट नॉट अवेयर ऑफ व्हाट यू डिड 4 years बैक, right? So be through with the act, and once you're through with the act, then go for Clear TDS. It's a free software. Otherwise, Fast TDS, it's a paid software which is very nice, but उसके लिए आपको I think 7 या 8,000 का उनका सब्सक्रिप्शन होता है. Clear TDS is a free of cost software.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. So the next question is from Anubha Srivastav, and she says GST for lawyers. So how do lawyers handle GST with the clients that they have, the payments that they're making? How do we go about that?
Now GST for lawyers is a very wide concept. मतलब it's not as simple as GST for chartered accountants. हमारे लिए बहुत सिंपल सा कंसेप्ट है. अगर मैं 20 लाख तक टर्नओवर में हूँ, कोई जीएसटी नहीं है. अगर मैं 20 लाख का टर्नओवर क्रॉस कर दिया है तो मुझे सिंपली अपनी सर्विस के ऊपर 18% जीएसटी चार्ज करना है. अगर मैंने आपको 10,000 रुपए का बिल दिया, मैं आपको 18% जीएसटी चार्ज करूंगा. मैं आपसे 11,800 लूंगा, 1,800 में सरकार को जमा करा दूंगा, 10,000 में अपने पास रख लूंगा. ठीक है, दिस इज द सिंपल थंब रूल व्हिच अप्लाइज फॉर ऑल द प्रोफेशनल्स. फॉर लॉयर्स इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट, राइट, क्योंकि इसमें रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म नाम का एक कंसेप्ट इंसर्ट हो जाता है. अब रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म ये कहता है मुझे कि मान लीजिए आप एक लॉयर हैं, आप जीएसटी में रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है. यू आर अ लॉयर और अ फर्म ऑफ लॉयर्स, आप जीएसटी में रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है. आपका टर्नओवर क्योंकि 10 लाख रुपए, अब आप 10 लाख रुपए में तो आप जीएसटी के एम्बिट में तो आए नहीं, आपने जीएसटी का रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं कराया. अब मैं एक स्टील ट्रेडर हूं, आपने मेरे लिए एक लीगल सर्विस दी और आपने मेरे को उस पर 10,000 का बिल दिया. ठीक है, तो अब वो एक रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म लग जाएगा जिसमें आप तो जीएसटी मुझे डायरेक्टली चार्ज नहीं करेंगे. मैं आपके नाम पे 1800 रुपीज का सरकार को पहले 1800 जमा कराऊंगा और उसके बाद उस 1800 का इनपुट खुद लूंगा. तो वो मेरे लिए काम डिफिकल्ट हो गया. तो इसलिए अगर मेरे पास कोई कंसल्टेंट आता है जो कहता है कि हमारे पास जीएसटी नहीं है, मैं उसको कहता हूँ प्लीज आप जीएसटी ले लो, या फिर मैं किसी जीएसटी वाले से काम करा लेता हूँ, क्योंकि मैं रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म के कॉम्प्लिकेशंस में खुद नहीं फंसना चाहता. So the thumb rule is कि आपके ऊपर डायरेक्टली जीएसटी अप्लाई हो ही जाएगा, आइदर डायरेक्टली और रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म के थ्रू. आपकी सर्विसेज तो जीएसटी के उसमें आ ही जाएंगे अगर आप किसी रजिस्टर्ड पर्सन को सर्विस दे रहे हैं. हाँ, अगर आपने फॉर एग्जांपल सिद्धार्थ चड्डा, हु इज अ वर्किंग क्लास ह्यूमन हु हैज नॉट टेकन अ जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन, अब अगर आप मेरे को 10,000 का बिल दे रहे हैं, मेरे को कोई आरसीएम की प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, आप मत करिए जीएसटी चार्ज, आई डोंट माइंड, एंड आई वुड रादर प्रेफर कि आपके पास जीएसटी नहीं है, वरना मेरे को आपको 10,000 की जगह 11,800 रुपए देने पड़ेंगे, राइट, मेरी कॉस्ट बढ़ रही है। इन सच सिनेरियो आई वुड प्रेफर कि आपके पास जीएसटी नहीं है, but for the corporate people who have to serve registered clients, who have to serve corporates, right, those who are registered under GST, for them not having a GST is a very big no. They just have to get a GST registration irrespective of the turnover, if at all you're targeting companies as your clients. Agar aap simply divorce cases or family matters, and if you're such kind of lawyer who's not serving the registered persons, then definitely don't go for GST till your turnover does not exceed the threshold. Otherwise, I told you the basic fundamental. अगर आप 20 lakhs क्रॉस करेंगे, फिर तो मैं आपको बता ही दिया कैसे जीएसटी काम करता है.
All right. Before we move forward, Siddharth, there's a lot of messages I'm getting that how can we reach Siddharth? I think you have fresh fishes in your net today. So how do they reach out to you? Please tell them.
I'm sharing my contact details.
Yes.
Just. So this is my, I hope it is visible for everyone. CA Siddharth Chadha, siddharth.chadha@schadda.co.in, and that is my mobile number.
So next question is from Hardik Mehra Siddharth, and he wants to ask what is the compliance and privileges for Section 8 companies?
Section 8 companies. Now, Section 8 company is a very important concept. It is for, as I told you earlier in the very beginning, there are three kinds of entities that abide by the social objectives. So it is society, trust, and Section 8 company. These are called the NGOs. Now, apart from the ROC compliances I've already discussed with you, ATT 1 भरेंगे auditor appointment के लिए, MGT 7 भरेंगे management change के लिए, AOC, those are the redundant things which you do not have to get into much, who I have told you earlier as well. The most important thing which is separate for Section 8 companies is the benefit under Section 11 and 12 of the Income Tax Act. That is the only reason behind which the companies actually get themselves registered as Section 8 companies. तो Section 8 कंपनी एक कंसेप्ट है जो कंपनीज एक्ट 2013 में आया, इससे पहले 1956 वाले कंपनीज एक्ट में इसको सेक्शन 25 कंपनी बोलते थे. जब आपका फॉर एग्जांपल ऑब्जेक्टिव है कि मेरे को रिलीजन प्रमोट करना है, या आई वुड से चैरिटी की उसकी डेफिनेशंस हैं, सेक्शन 11 सबसेक्शन 2 है which tells us about the multiple kinds of charitable objects, जिसमें एजुकेशन, प्रिजर्वेशन ऑफ मॉन्यूमेंट्स, वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट टाइप के कुछ कॉन्सेप्ट, कुछ ऑब्जेक्टिव्स आते हैं. नाउ इमेजिन मैं एक स्कूल खोलना चाहता हूं बाय द नेम ऑफ सिद्धार्थ चड्ढा एजुकेशन, राइट. अभी वहां पर मेरा ऑब्जेक्टिव है टू प्रोवाइड एजुकेशन. एजुकेशन इज इट इज अ चैरिटेबल कॉन्सेप्ट अंडर सेक्शन 11 सबसेक्शन 2. तो मेरे लिए बहुत अच्छा ऑल्टरनेटिव है कि मैं सेक्शन 8 कंपनी बना लूं, मैं सोसाइटी ट्रस्ट ना बनाऊं. सोसाइटी ट्रस्ट बनाना बहुत ओल्ड कॉन्सेप्ट है, फिजिकल कंप्लायंसेस से आधे से ज्यादा बार-बार आपको रजिस्ट्रार ऑफिस जाना पड़ेगा. सेक्शन 8 कंपनी काफी हद तक वर्चुअल हो चुका है. मैं सेक्शन 8 कंपनी बनाऊंगा, वैसे ही डायरेक्टर बनेंगे और मेरा एक एनजीओ बन जाएगा. उसके बाद में सेक्शन 11 और 12 का रजिस्ट्रेशन अगर लेता हूं, आई एम एक्चुअली, आई वुड से प्रैक्टिकली, नॉट थ्योरेटिकली बट प्रैक्टिकली मेरा सारा प्रॉफिट टैक्स एग्जेम्प्ट है. So that is the point you should focus on in case of a Section 8 company. And if you're a lawyer and you're giving consultancy to any of your clients regarding Section 8 companies, the remaining provisions work almost as they are for other companies. This is the point which you should tell them, because it is for even the lawyers, this is a very huge remuneration point. अगर आप Section 11 and 12 में काम करें, there are multiple professionals who have only Section 11 and 12 to deal with. उनकी 50 years पुरानी practice है और वो सिर्फ Section 11 and 12 में काम कर रहे हैं. It is like negotiable instruments for lawyers. मतलब वो कुछ lawyers हैं जो सिर्फ negotiable instruments के कुछ sections पे काम करते हैं, उस टाइप का है. So अगर आप इसमें अपनी expertise बनाते हैं, this is a very nice concept. So my head office is like in Dehradun, and in Uttarakhand we have multiple trusts and ashrams. So that's why I have over the years built my expertise in 11 and 12 section, because वो एक बहुत अच्छा sector है for working professionals. Section 8, go for Section 11 and 12 understanding. The remaining professions work almost as they work for the other companies.
All right. Thank you. So we have two questions from Kaushal and Advocate Elijah again, and I'll just merge them too. So Kaushal wants to ask, is legal associates and legal LLP similar? And Advocate Elijah is asking, is partnership firm and associates one and the same thing?
So associates is just an affix which you've added to your name, right? I have chosen the name Siddharth Chadha and Company for my partnership firm. If I want, I can use the name Siddharth Chadha and Associates. Associates is not a term which is given to me by the LLP Act or the Companies Act or by any MSME guiding regulations. This is not the legal term. LLP is a word which can be used only for the LLPs registered, right? So associates as such कुछ नहीं होता proprietorship या firm है. एक proprietor भी अपने नाम के आगे associates लगा सकता है, right? initially I was Siddharth Chaddha and Company, where I was a proprietor. I had no partners, but my name was Siddharth Chaddha and Company, right? So that's how it works. वो associates कुछ वैसा नहीं है कि वो खाली आप partnership firm से LLPs को use करना है, वो कोई भी use कर सकता है. Difference है partnership firm and partnership firm LLP. So Siddharth Chaddha and Company could be a proprietor. Siddharth Chaddha and Associates could be a proprietorship or could be a partnership firm. But Siddharth Chaddha and Associates LLP can only be a registered LLP. तो ये difference है LLP में और Associates. So I hope you get the difference.
All right. So before moving forward, everyone, I request you again to please do not turn on your mic or video because that disrupts everything on the screen. So other people are also watching. We'll take care of them also. The next question is from Shrishti Upneja, and she asks, does PPPs require audit,
Yes.
and what are the terms? Does PPP,
Public-private partnerships.
public-private partnerships,
Okay.
yes. Do they require audit, and if yes, what are the terms?
So first of all, in 99% scenarios, you would be able to enter into a PPP only and only when you either have an LLP or you have a private limited company. I practically, in my experience, have never seen a proprietorship entering into a PPP, right? So when you are a company, you by default are subject to auditing. And when you are doing a public-private partnership, the quantum of the transactions is so much that you have to enter into a, what do you call, you qualify the threshold limit. Now, a scenario where even the government has a stake in the company and it is a government company, then the provisions of section 143 of Companies Act, there is separate provisions altogether for controller, auditor general. It becomes a government audit. उसमें CAG impaneled auditor होता है, वो government companies के अलग provisions हैं. So I would not be taking this question because उसके facts बहुत ज़्यादा vary कर सकते हैं कि आप वो CAG वाले angle में जा रहे हैं कि आप अपने private में जा रहे हैं जिसमें आप खाली government के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, you're just calling it a PPP. तो वो थोड़ा कंसेप्ट अभी आई थिंक अगर आप मेल पे डिस्कस करेंगे प्रॉब्लम तो आई विल बी एबल टू हेल्प यू आउट बेटर.
Right, we have the screen still shared on your screen, and you can see how to contact Siddharth. And we'll move on to the next question from Tanya Verma, and she wants to ask, what are the benefits for a proprietorship business availed by registering as MSME?
Okay, so as I told you, MSME, first of all, it is a document which you get. It is one of the preliminary registrations which every proprietor gets. Now the benefits are MSME provides a lot of loans, especially in the current scenario. अभी जैसे एक मुद्रा योजना का एक सरकार की योजना थी by the name of मुद्रा योजना. It was a collateral free loan. वो जनरली सिर्फ MSMEs को ही मिल रहा है, ठीक है. तो जब आप किसी सरकारी बैंक में मुद्रा योजना में फाइल लगाएंगे अपनी लोन की फाइल, then they'll ask you for the MSME registration. They are collateral free loans. It is very unfortunate that almost a major component of those loans actually do not end up paying back the banks, because of which banks are not that comfortable in distributing mudra yojanas. In current COVID scenario, the limit for women has been increased to 20 lakh rupees. So so if a woman entrepreneur has registered her business as an MSME, she can even avail a loan of 20 lakh rupees as a collateral free loan at very nice subsidized rates. Then there are multiple other facilities also that like NABARD is giving subsidies. So NABARD को actually FSI का license दे देंगे आप तो it would suffice, but नहीं, वो भी आपसे MSME का license, MSME का certificate मांग लेंगे as a matter of compliance. So theoretically कुछ होता है, but practically scenario at times बहुत different होता है. So I just applied a file with NABARD for a dairy farming project where I was getting 25% subsidy on the loan I was availing. It was mandatory. They asked me for the MSME loan. They asked me for the MSME certificate. Otherwise, they were not interested in funding it. So since it was just a 3 days process, I did it anyways, and I got the certificate and we got the loan. So it is a very important document. Yeah.
All right. So we're already over 1 hour. We've taken more than what we had asked from you, but we still have few questions to go. If you permit, we'll go on with them.
I think we can have another segment, or we could have a few questions on mail as well.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that shortly.
I think that would work.
There's a very, very little question by Himanshu Joshi, and he wants to ask, अगर house loan है and HRA है, so how to prepare this situation? I don't know if this is a complete question. Himanshu, if you want to add something, you can.
इसको मैं separately entertain कर सकता हूँ, मतलब based on the preliminary understanding क्या हुआ इस केस में. HRA जब होता है, HRA का benefit होता है उसमें 3, तो HRA अगर आपको पता हो तो it is house rent allowance, right? When I get a salary, for example, I am drawing a salary of 50,000 rupees, over and above I am getting an HRA of 10,000 rupees. अब वो HRA मुझे मिलता है क्योंकि मैं for example मैं मुंबई जाके जॉब कर रहा हूँ, so मेरा मुंबई में घर नहीं, so they will be giving me HRA, ठीक है कि आप HRA ले लीजिए to compensate for the rent that you are paying. अब उसका theoretical concept यही था कि it is a compensation for the rent that a individual is paying, right? So how does it actually work? अब जब मैंने उसमें slab rates होते हैं, so it is like 40% or 50% depending upon metro non-metro cities of the HR actually received, or the rent actually paid, or the 10% of the basic. तो उसमें multiple limits हैं, 3 limits हैं. The lower of those limits will be allowed as a tax exemption. ठीक है, तो अगर मेरी सारी लिमिट्स क्वालिफाई हो रही हैं तो मेरी जो इनकम टैक्स होगी वो खाली 50,000 रुपीज टैक्स होगी, वो 10,000 रुपीज कॉम्पोनेंट टैक्स नहीं होगा. सो दैट इज द बेसिक फंडा ऑफ एचआर, राइट? कि वो एक अलाउंस है, उस अलाउंस की 3 कंडीशंस हैं. अगर आप उन 3 कंडीशंस के जो मैथमेटिकल इक्वेशन है वो 3 अगर आप वो फॉलो कर लेते हो और आपका वो क्वालिफाई हो जाता है तो उस अमाउंट पे आपको टैक्स नहीं देना पड़ेगा. दैट इज द कंसेप्ट ऑफ एचआर. अब एक कंसेप्ट है आपका हाउस लोन का. ठीक है, हाउस लोन आपको 2 टाइप की डिडक्शंस देता है. एक आपको जो इंटरेस्ट रीपेमेंट हुआ है और एक आपने जो प्रिंसिपल रीपेमेंट करा है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मैंने इस साल होम लोन की रीपेमेंट करी जिसमें मेरा 1,00,000 रुपए का तो प्रिंसिपल रीपेमेंट हुआ था. आप इंटरेस्ट सर्टिफिकेट मांगेंगे बैंक से तो आपको बता देगा कि आपने जो 2,00,000 रुपए में पे किया था उसको हमने कैसे ट्रीट किया. उसमें जो तो आपने इंटरेस्ट ट्रीट किया वो इंटरेस्ट को आप सेपरेटली कंसिडर करेंगे और जो आपने प्रिंसिपल रीपेमेंट किया उसको आप सेपरेटली ट्रीट करेंगे. ठीक है, जब मैं अपनी कंप्यूटेशन ऑफ इनकम बनाऊंगा तो अंडर इनकम फ्रॉम हाउसिंग प्रॉपर्टी जितना भी मैंने इंटरेस्ट रीपेमेंट किया है अप टू अ लिमिट ऑफ 2 लाख रुपीस व्हिच हैज बीन इंक्रीज्ड फ्रॉम 1.5 लाख इन द ईयर, 2 लाख रुपीस तक का इंटरेस्ट डिडक्शन मेरे को मिल जाएगा अंडर सेक्शन 24 ऑफ इनकम फ्रॉम हाउसेज एंड प्रॉपर्टी, फ्रॉम इनकम फ्रॉम हाउस प्रॉपर्टी. और जो मैंने प्रिंसिपल रीपेमेंट किया है अप टू अ लिमिट ऑफ 1.5 लाख रुपीस मेरे को डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा अंडर सेक्शन 80C. So this is how housing loan works. This is how HR works.
All right. Thank you. So we should be wrapping it up, but there's a very little question from CA fraternity, and I cannot ignore that. And Vindita wants to ask if we are starting with our profession, so is it better to go for practice or service in the initial years?
I started with service. I was fortunate enough to get a campus placement. I didn't take that campus placement. I took another job. Then I did that job. I was at Ernst & Young. I got an offer from Deloitte. I was getting one of the most best service lines. I was in mergers and acquisition taxation. So it was like the service line. If I would have worked in that service line, probably 10 years down the line, I could have a roaring practice of my own. But I believe कि आपको एक एम्प्लॉयर कभी भी उतना नहीं सिखाएगा जितना आप खुद हिट एंड ट्रायल करके सीख सकते हो. When you're actually facing a client, when you are doing your research on your own, when you have a pressure कि अगर मैंने ये काम नहीं किया मेरा client चला जाएगा, you become like a sponge. You actually you absorb everything, right? So the learning curve for myself, I would say for myself, was I could clearly figure that out कि मेरा practice में क्या scope है and मेरा service में क्या scope है, and I ignored that job. I started with a practice जबकि मेरे पास एक भी client नहीं था. By God's grace, I got a few clients of my own. So now I am very happy with my decision and I actually never look back as to why I never took a job. So it is case specific. अगर आपके अंदर वो है, if you have that capability कि आप पूरा दिन research करेंगे, you're ready to get your hands dirty by asking clients, and if you're ready to do all that, then go for practice. It is the most remunerative form of business that you can do, a professional practice, be it lawyer, be it CA. And service has its own benefits. You just have to work till 9 p.m. After 9 p.m. you can switch off your mobile phone. You do not have to worry about anything. So it has its own benefits.
All right. Thank you so much, Siddharth. And it was an amazing session. I am really amazed how much you know about everything that we were talking about. And we'll trouble you again for another session.
Sure.
I think few more sessions on different topics that people have been asking.
Yeah, I think we can have specific session on income tax, specific session on GST. I think that will work.
Yes, of course. And we have a lot of appreciations coming for you and a lot of blessings. And thank you all the participants for being so participative, and also many people like Kaushik sir and Mr. Vinayak who were helping everyone in the Zoom chat. Thank you so much, Siddharth, and stay tuned, people. We are going to have such sessions again in the very near future, and we'll be having many mentors like Siddharth again coming on the platform. Thank you, everyone.
Just one last word. My contact details are shared. Please feel free to ask any question. It is not a paid service. We are helping each other in today's scenario. You have any question, you can mail me. I'll try to reply in another 24 hours, right? And you don't have to worry about taking an appointment or paying any fees for the consultancy that I give. That is a favor that we entrepreneurs have to give to each other, right? And I hope all have noted my contact details. And it was nice hosting this webinar. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Lloyd.
Right.
And thank you, Rishabh, for holding this, or Raghav for mentoring the session.
You're welcome. And there's a beautiful team working on the back end from Lawyered, and you can connect with the information that has been given in the registration links, all the social media posts, and you can reach out to us from anywhere, and we'll be helping you in addressing your queries with perfect resolutions. Thank you, everyone. We'll close this
Thank you so
now.
much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.